am now back. I know I was supposed to upload the Green Goblin review, but procrastination and stuff got the best of me. But it is finished. I just need to download it and then upload it. But in the meantime, here is a review on the Transformers, the Studio Series Transformers 1 Optimus Prime. So, here we are. There he is. Now, before we move on to the figure, one thing to mention, another side note, is originally I was going to do a Retro Kingpin review, but because Transformers 1 is going to be releasing soon, in like 2 weeks, I may as well film this review before the movie comes out. So, there is going to be no spoilers here, because as of now, it's September, 7th, and the movie hasn't released, but there are trailers, so be warned. Anyways, here's the box. Here's the side, featuring a nice shot of Optimus Prime. The other side, right there, very nice Autobot logo. On the top, Transformers 1. On the bottom, stuff like that. And on the back is basically all you get of the figure, including the gimmicks and stuff like that. There is a bio read up there. You can pause right there. There we go. And if you open the figure, he comes with a good old-fashioned, I'm going to go off camera for this, because this one's actually a lot harder to get out. A good old-fashioned stand. Little display stand here, which comes with every Transformers Studio Series release. So, now let's move on to the figure itself. So, if you would know by now, I did post a short about this figure not too long ago. It was in a Toys R Us. And yeah, this figure is available at Toys R Us. It's also available at Big Bad Toy Store and a lot of other retailers like Target and such. But I made a review, a short about it, and I didn't really discuss about it too much. But my overall thoughts when I got this figure was, I think there was some things just wrong with it in terms of the gray. It just looked less like it was gray and looked more like it was yellowing. Like it just came straight out of the sun and it started to mold. So, I was a little concerned. Now, when I got the figure out of the box during my birthday, overall, I was pretty surprised with this figure's articulation, but also kind of disappointed with how this figure's transformation is. So, overall, is this figure worth getting, especially since there's the mainline release, which I don't have for comparison, but is this figure worth getting? Well, I'm about to tell you in this review right now. Now, let's start with some of the paint and the sculpt on this figure, which overall, I think the painting and the sculpting is okay. Granted, it definitely suffers a little bit with it looking a little too unfinished and a little bit too dull. Starting off with the head sculpt here, you could see how very nicely sculpted it is, but at the same time, if you can notice it on camera, it really looks like it looks a little too wide. Of course, they can't really get that pupil look like in the box or like in the actual model. But yeah, there's basically it's just blue. But it definitely looks a little bit too big and looks more like a hat than anything. It's just a little bit too big on the sides here, and it really looks a little very off. Now, moving on to this guy's shoulders and chest, it's really nicely well done. But one of the main problems I feel like with this figure is the colors themselves. The colors are a little dull. I mean, there's no denying it. Like everything about it just is dull, or it looks like it's just flat out just a yellowing, which is not good for quality control standpoint. So, basically, when you look at this figure, it looks like it's yellowing. There's a nice, clear, translucent plastic for his chest. It's very nicely well done, very nicely sculpted. and very nicely painted, but again, it looks off because, you know, of all the stuff going on. The arms look really good. They're very nicely sculpted. A little too broad, but honestly not terrible. I like the broadness. It's just really the head that makes it weird. The smokestacks are really nice, or technically the flamethrowers because of, you know, the trailer. And overall, they look really good. But again, it just comes down to the colors. The red is just too dull, and if you could tell, it looks dull IRL. And especially when you look at look at the legs. Look at this. It's just, it looks like it's yellowing. And I feel like there was a few spots in the trailer where this was more red than anything. Or I could be entirely wrong, but there should be a little bit more color, a little bit more color than just plain old, like, yellowing silver. And also just comes down to this old waist. The waist, again, is what the main draw of this figure is to me, because it's essentially just a yellowing piece of plastic. It looks like it, and it just looks sad. And overall, it really is a shame. It has that. It's not bad by any means. I like the sculpting, of course, of his crotch piece, but this thing is going to be a pain later when we go into articulation. But overall, I really like it. But at the same time, again, there are some flaws. I know I'm going a little bit fast with this, but honestly, I haven't reviewed a Transformer figure in like such a long time. I've been so used to like stuff like Monster Arts or Godzilla that doing Transformers is kind of difficult. So bear with me when doing this. So yeah, very nicely sculpted knees over here with what's going on with the wheels. Very nicely sculpted. And how they integrated, I think the wheels is really good. And yeah, overall, really nice sculpt, but again, the painting is a lot to be desired. He looks too broad, he looks a little bit plain, no shades of black. You couldn't even get that silver color like in the box for his abdomen. It's just flat out like that. And then we go into the back with the kibble. Oh boy. It just looks nasty. It looks ugly in a sense. And yeah, it's a bit of a bummer. And this just kind of sits here. There's no flap. There's no anything. It just sits. There's maybe like a little notch, but nothing. Just sits there. Okay, so what's the next thing you're going to say about this figure that you don't like? Well, I don't know. I really like this figure. In terms of other things, again, it's just, I don't like the paint. I don't think the paint is amazing. I think the sculpting is not bad, but yeah, I don't know what else to say. So now let's move on to the accessories. This Prime comes with 3 accessories. The first accessory I'm going to talk about is this beautifully just casted Energon axe with some blue transparent plastic. Now to attach this, it's simple. There's peg holes there. Boom. It looks really cool to see, but I might put like one picture up screen up here. The original mainline toy has more like a unique feature where his fist or his hand is kind of holding the ball part of this axe. So yeah, overall it looks really good. You know, very nicely sculpted indeed, and not bad. It's a very cool accessory, but for me, I wish it came with a few guns. Now, before we move on to the Matrix and the other stuff, I also forgot to mention that this came off separately because these are supposed to implement another part of the figure, his, like, flamethrowers. For a second, I thought these are actual smokestacks, but in the trailer, they were basically just flamethrowers. So you simply just rotate them and then boom. Honestly, with the shoulders and how the shoulders are made, it doesn't look good. And with this, I don't know. It just looks a little silly to me. Yeah, it looks a little silly. Now, I'm going to take the figure off camera for a bit. just to adjust the smokestacks. They are removable, and you can hold them like so. But honestly, that's just sad. And honestly, it's kind of a sad excuse he doesn't have a gun. Would it be so hard for him to have a gun? Or does he not have a gun in the movie? I don't know. Now, moving on to the other accessory. Let me just remove this. Moving on to essentially another kind of part about the figure, the matrix of leadership with some translucent plastic, cast it all over it with a bit of paint. Very nicely well done. I'm going to get a tweezer here to kind of show you what I mean. It's very nicely well done, and it's very nicely painted, but why are these blue notches here? Well, if you can take a closer look, there are a few slots here. So what these do is this basically does the whole light our darkest hour type of moment. And there goes the matrix. Hold on. Just gonna, there we go. I'm gonna have to go off camera here, but to demonstrate, they just simply peg into these holes, and then you have to kind of do something like this. And I don't know, that just looks silly. It looks a little silly. It looks a little stupid. But honestly, it's not terrible. But it definitely does look silly. It looks like he looks just sad. It's sadder than even Earthrise Optimus. Because I know that figure, he can't really hold the Matrix properly. So, due to his, like, sculpt. So, yeah, kind of a shame. Moving on. And now to store it, you simply just open his chest and then, boop, there we go, plug it in. Matrix of Leadership secured. And then the last accessory is this thing, which will later play a part in the transformation, which I will do later. Anyways, accessories are decent, but honestly, I really wish he came with a gun. I don't know, man. It just feels weird seeing Optimus without, like, some form of a gun. Even, like, I don't know, even, like, the movie figures, I feel like, fix that problem with Studio Series. But overall, it's really good. Now let's move on to, I think, this figure's much more strong point, and that is this figure's articulation. So, for overall articulation, this figure is way better than I expected. There are some things here that I actually really like. Starting off with the head, there is a ball joint here. He can look up really, really far, which is more or less meant for the transformation, but he can't really look down. He can rotate his head, though. There is a swivel on his arms. However, it can be slightly hindered due to this part right here, and this will become later relevant in the transformation. He does have a butterfly joint and a hinge that goes up and down. However, it definitely has a problem because, as you can see on camera, it is starting to pop off right there. Look at that. It's about to pop off. But anyways, moving the lights aside, there is gonna be a bicep swivel and a single jointed elbow and a wrist swivel. He does have a waist swivel, but it's more like an abdomen swivel. And it's kind of more relevant for the transformation. And he does have, again, this movable crotch piece, which I flat out don't understand. Because this thing occasionally pops off. To secure it, you simply just press the little certain areas here and here, press them together, and it's a little bit more secure. But it's still, why? Just why? You could have easily integrated like a pin or something, but then again, it could have broken. But yes, he has ball joints here at the thighs, so he could kick up this far and back this far and splits this far. Pretty good. There is no thigh swivel, but there is a knee swivel. He has a very decent bend, or not really decent, a really good bend, an ankle pivot, and some toe articulation, but this is more meant for the transformation. So posability, I think, again, is this figure's strong point. However, with the QC issues with the crotch piece, like the unnecessary crotch piece, the arms here popping off, and other things, it really feels, it just doesn't feel right. Granted, there are some things I like about here. The legs are really good, and with their added ankle articulation, and the head, it adds for some amazing poses. But, you know, without a gun and without really any effect parts, it really makes it such a bland experience. So, yeah. Now let's move on to some size comparisons, which I will be right back for. Be right back for. Fortunately, I don't know where my ruler is. I don't know really how tall he is. I think he's like almost 6 inches or maybe 5 inches. So for some comparisons, here he is with the Studio Series Bumblebee from Rise of the Beast and the Studio Series Bumblebee from the Bumblebee movie. For a deluxe, he's actually pretty decently big. He's almost like he's like a small Voyager, basically. And this will be shown right here with this comparison, and that's with the Earthrise Optimus Prime, my favorite Optimus Prime figure, and the Rise of the Beast buzzworthy Bumblebee Optimus Prime. Yes, I have this, and it was kind of a hassle to get, and I feel kind of bad for the people who had to find it, essentially. But yes, there he is. He's like a very medium-sized deluxe. Now, moving on to this figure's transformation. Okay, now for this figure's transformation, it's not bad, but it definitely also suffers a few problems, mainly with the legs feeling like, and well, the lower body, the whole lower half feeling like that's really it. It feels like you're missing a step. And that's what I felt initially. Turns out I was right, and I got it first try without even looking at the instructions. So, starting off, you simply just rotate his head, then you press this hinge joint pad right here, and this will collapse the neck, or the headpiece. Moving on to the arms, you simply untab them, as so, and you use those joints, these white joints, and fully just spread them out. Rotate this back piece as well, because this will become later relevant. Untab the waist, and then rotate the waist or the abdomen further, and of course, untab this grill piece with no hinges for some reason. I don't know why. Then afterwards, you simply just fold the arms in like so. Make sure these holes right here, I don't know if you could see it on camera, but these holes right here fit into those red tabs like so and like so. Very unique transformation there. And then if you want to, you could simply just move the smokestacks backwards. So that means they're more like in a normal pose. And then simply seal off the top hood, the top part right here. Moving down to the legs, bend the toes, tab the legs together. But actually, no, before you do that, you simply have to do this. You flip these little parts here around, and okay, this is like actual live footage of me struggling. But yes, there we go. And then simply rotate his body like so, and I messed it up. Okay, so it turns out that I did it wrong. But yeah, so basically you keep it like this, but you fold these out. So these are apparently folded out before I even knew what really happened. But anyways, you simply just this kind of just sits here, and then you simply peg in these large ports into here like so. And also another thing to note, there is a red peg, as you could see right there. So you could just do that. Fit everything together. And just simply just tab in those hand pegs. And boom, you have the truck mode. And with all the failed recordings aside, and me actually failing the transformation so miserably, the truck mode is okay. It definitely feels like I really missed a step. And it really does not help that the lower body just doesn't do anything. It doesn't tab, it just sits there. I'll admit the first half is really good, very interesting, but the second half, this half is just bland and boring, and it definitely feels unfinished. That's one thing I can really take note with Perspective Ends review, which he absolutely tore into this figure much more than I did in this review. But overall, it's like fix this thing. It's not bad. It's very nice. It could roll really well, and there's all the other stuff. It's just a very nice looking truck with very nice looking details, but again, it's kind of not helped by this weird shade of gray. Now, as I mentioned about this piece, as you could see right here, there's a few holes at the front, and you simply just kind of let this sit here, and boom. So it's basically parts forming. It's not bad, and it's not necessary, but it's still and even more, it's a pain on camera, as you could see, for me to pry this thing out. You might need a Lego, you might need a piece of plastic or something, or even a DX9 part separator just to pull this thing out because the pegs are so tight. But anyways, now comparison with other truck modes. Some vehicle comparisons. Here he is with the Studio Series Bumblebee from Rise of the Beast. I am not transforming this guy. Hell no. But anyways, here he is right there. Really nicely scaled. Now, of course, here he is scaled to the Earthrise Optimus and the Studio Series Buzzworthy Bumblebee Rise of the Beast Optimus Prime. So he's very much like a mini Voyager. Now, let's transform this guy back, which is basically just the reverse of this whole thing. So, overall, is this figure worth buying? To some extent, yes. I think there's something about this I like more than the main line, but again, I can't really do a great comparison because I don't have the main line. There's just a few things I like. I like the articulation. I think the sculpting is pretty decent. And overall, I think the transformation in the first half is fun, but I do feel there are some mini complaints. The head sculpt isn't really the greatest. I do feel the paint could have been a lot better, and I do feel the lower half could have been a little bit more unique, a little bit more intuitive, but in reality it's just very lame and it comes off as a little bit unfinished. And I really wish he came with a few more accessories than just the accessories he came, you know? I wish he just didn't have a matrix at all, and that was just a painted blue dot, and he just came with a gun. Like, the figure overall is fun. It's a great figure, but it's also kind of hard for me to recommend. If I had to be honest with you, I suggest you get it. I like, the scaling and such. But until then, until the movie comes out, this is our closest one we'll get until, of course, YOLO Park releases theirs, which, give me, please. But, yeah, overall, for a figure of this deluxe price, it's not bad. It's not great either. It's just pretty decent. So, out of 10, I would probably give it like a 7, maybe 7.5. But honestly, I think 7's more definitive for this guy. It's not terrible, but it's definitely disappointing in some areas. So, yeah, this is my review on the Optimus Prime. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, hit the bell. And yes, I know this one was a little bit rushed, a little bit more confusing. Again, I apologize. It's been a while since I've done a Transformers review. But I will see you all next time with the next review being the actual Retro Kingpin. Bye-bye.